This gentleman is Mr. Sun Myung Moon, who is traveling around the world calling for the establishment of one world religion and one church. Seated next to him is his interpreter, David Kim. Mr. Moon speaks only Korean. Now, Mr. Kim, will you explain to Mr. Moon that if I take a merry, lighthearted approach to him, it's not out of disrespect, it's because in civilian life I'm a part-time humorist. Go, all right? Now, Mr. Moon, according to your remarkable biography, at the age of 16, on Easter Sunday, you had a conversation with Jesus.
Yes, he did through the revelation in vision.
Well, now, you weren't with him, Mr. Kim, at the time.
No, I was not there.
Well, then, did Jesus speak a good Korean? Did it have a Hebrew accent?
그러면 예수가 히브리 액센트로 해서 말씀하셨습니까?
한국말로 했다고? 한국말로?
In Korean, they conversed each other.
영적인 세계를 마음으로서 바라면 안다.
That means spirit world. When you spiritually contact or in spirit world, we carry the conversation with mind to mind, heart to heart.
Yes. All right, now, at present, Mr. Moon is regarded as a Messiah by many devout and very attractive followers. There are some in the audience tonight. And he's regarded as a Messiah. Now, there are, by my researches, 27 working messiahs roaming the world right now, and that doesn't include John, Yoko, and Lemon. Or John Lennon and Yoko. Oh, I get my messiahs all mixed up. Now, what I would like to know is, are the other 26 messiahs fakes? And is Mr. Moon the only true one?
나 자신은 그런 메시아인 것을 얘기한 적이 한 번도 없다고 아마 이 양반은 연결을 통해서 세리한 사명에서 메시아 있다는 말을 증거한 거네라.
He never said he claimed himself he is the Messiah. Maybe you probably received spiritually.
I like humorous messiahs myself.
One more thing, you cut me off.
Yes, I'm sorry.
To act, to perform the John the Baptist mission.
Yes.
You must have received or through this kind of message.
I see. But now here, and this is why I asked that question. This is, and can the camera catch it, an advertisement for Mr. Moon's appearance at Lincoln Center. It says, God speaks today, and there's a picture of Mr. Moon. Now, am I to understand, Mr. Kim, that Mr. Moon is it really going to be a personal appearance by number one himself?
지금 하나님이 계시면 하나님이 이 세상을 대해서 하고 싶은 말이 많다고. 그렇지만 하지 못한 그것을 내가 연결을 통해 가지고 어느 정도가 알기 때문에 하나님 대신 대변자로 하라는 말이라고.
This means God has no body, wants to talk directly to the person on earth. I know, I'm not finished yet. And so he wants to pick up somebody, representative, or his representative on earth. So he wants to be his spokesman for this day. That's why this title, God Speaks Today, not necessarily He speaks today, but God speaks today through
Mr. Moon. That's what I said about 3 minutes ago. But it's all right. You're fascinating. Now, am I then to understand that, for instance, let me suggest to you that in the city of New York, there are hundreds and hundreds of clergymen of all faiths who are also speaking what their followers believe to be the Word of God at vastly lower rates. It's $18 to hear the Word of God through Mr. Moon, and I'm sure it's worth every nickel of it. But you can hear the Word of God spoken for free by priests, ministers, and rabbis all throughout New York. Are they too not speaking the Word of God?
그것이 미국이라든가 이 전 자유세계를 보게 된다면 지금 하나님을 믿는 사람들이 무가치하게 됐다고. 교회면 교회 목사가 지금 권위가 있는 것이 아니고 신자면 신자가 권위가 있는 것이 아니고 사회에서 보게 될 때 목사 혹은 뭐 신자하게 되면 춘배했고 여기서 하나님이 죽었다고 하는 일이 실적에 있어서 거저해 좀 가치를 모르는 거예요. 그래서 그렇기 때문에 가치를 인정시키기 위해서는 높게 봐야 되겠다. 그렇기 때문에
See that karate chop? Don't mess around with the Messiah.
Now, in order to bring the real value and the message he is speaking, he put this price because, according to his observation, throughout the world, including this nation, religious authority is sinking down, and even believers of so-called Christianity, also even ministers level, are losing their authority. In this situation, to bring the valuable message from God directly, speaking to the mankind or this nation through him, he thought it is a good idea to this kind of give the idea of valuable message, and
People respect
giving
what
them,
they must pay for.
yeah, even though giving the free charge, better let them have, if he were freely given, it would devaluate the value of his message. The
Yes,
message.
that's a good Cadillac price on it. People respect it. We'll be back. We'll be right back after this. Mr. Moon, we all of us have read and heard many accounts of the appearance of Jesus. You are the only man I have ever met who actually met him. Would you describe him to us? Was Jesus a black man? Was he a brown man? Was he a white? What sort of man?
예수가 나타나는데 어떤 형태로 나타나느냐면 여러 사람들 많이 들었는데 이제 화이트맨으로 나타나냐 흑인으로 나타나느냐 어떻게 나타나냐.
지금 주이스 피플 같은 형태로 나타나죠.
He appears just like a form of Jewish people style.
He looked Jewish. He looked kind of Jewish, did he?
Like a white, look like a white.
Yes. I see. Now, was he? How old was he when Mr. Moon met him?
30세.
Understands every word I say. Brings him along only because he wanted to make a trip.
At 44 years old.
30세.
He was some 44 years old. Was
33세.
33 years of age.
he was 33 years of age? Did he look like the pictures of him? Did he wear a beard?
저 시험이 많이 났네요.
셈이 났다.
Yes, he had to be.
He wore a beard. And what sort of clothing?
어떤 옷을 입었느냐?
의된 나라 길은
A long robe of Jewish people.
I see. Now, did you ask when you know if a guy comes up to me and says, "Well, I am Napoleon," or "I am Bobby Sherman," or any other incredible creature, I ask him for some credentials. Did Mr. Moon know that this was Jesus? Did he ask for any credentials? What convinced him?
지금 여러 영이 나타나는데 크리덴셜이라는 어떤 신용장, 그 사람이 진짜인지 어떻게 아느냐 이 말이에요. 예수가 왜 그 사람인지 어떻게 딴 사람 가져다 있을까요?
그건 쭉 자랄 적부터 쭉 봐서 한다고 어렸을 적부터
그 사람의 생애는
그렇지 생애를 중삼아 쭉
보였다는
십자가 돌아갈 때까지
He has the panoramic
봐가지고.
view of vision from the childhood up to 34 years of age, up to 3 years of age. So there is no need of credential for him. Through his spiritual vision, he will be identified right there. He is the one.
Mr. Moon was born with the ability to recognize Jesus when he appeared.
그러면 어렸을 때부터 그러한 실정적인 면에서 그러한 능력을 가지시는가?
그런 사연이 알게 됐다.
Yeah, he has.
There was no
He has
question at all. Now, when Mr. Moon preaches, it says God speaks today. Does Mr. Moon feel a voice using, or a power using his voice to bring a message to his flock?
그럼 하나님께서 이런 God speaks today 이제 메시지를 하시면은 하나님의 음성이나 하나님이 직접 통해서 말씀하는 게.
그것은 그렇지 않다고 쭉 가르쳐준 내용을 좀 삼아가지고 얘기하더라고.
He receives message or revelation from God, what contents would be, and he converses with him.
All right, now, does God speak always through Mr. Moon? Is God speaking through Mr. Moon now, or does he speak only on scheduled appearances?
그러면 그때 할 적마다 하나님이 나타나서 말씀을 주십니까? 그렇지 않으면 한꺼번에 주십니까? 그럼 그때 나타나서 필요할 때마다 말씀.
그것은 기도할 때 한꺼번에 가르쳐 주는 것보다는 쭉 점진적으로 선리가 발전해 나온 그와 같이 우리 자체들이 발전한 데 따라가 쭉 가르쳐 준다고.
He has been contacting him progressively, gradually. Some of the messages certain time, just like gradually growing, stage everywhere we have through his prayer. So constantly, gradually, he is receiving revelation from God.
All right, now, but again, God, of course, knows all. God knows when this advertisement appears. God speaks today, and at that moment, as Mr. Moon is introduced, God begins to speak to him. I mean, don't take any chances on that.
But that's why he said,
advertise this and not have it.
Yeah, through his prayer beforehand, he knows. That's why already he talks here.
Well, I myself, I take a rather lighthearted approach to Mr. Moon, but if you were, I don't know if it comes over your television camera, but out of him shines the most enormous good nature, the most enormous goodwill, the most enormous affection, and I must tell you that during a break in the filming here, he sang the most charming song. I tell you, if this is the Messiah I want him something like this.
사람은 이렇게 은중에서 대화를 주시고 아주 처음부터 아리랑도 부르시고 많이 마셔야 지나면 이런 맛에 처음 들었어요.
I'm delighted, but we still have a few minutes to go.
미국에서 처음 좋은 손님 만났다고.
First time since he came to the United States, first time so nice gentleman, nice person like him.
How many of you were alive in 1972? Raise your hands. Oh, not too many. Were any of you there at that? No. It's hard to believe that that's almost 50 years ago. So, do you notice the difference between Al Cap and Reverend Moon? Reverend Moon is talking about spiritual things, invisible things, causal things, God, mind to mind, having a relationship with God gradually. Whereas Al Cap is talking about visible things, physical things. In other words, he's asking, did Jesus have a beard? Yeah, Reverend Moon said. Was he white? Yeah, he's white. What did he wear? Oh, he's Jewish robe, so on. And then there's some good questions there, which is, how do you know God's going to show up at Madison Square Garden? And what was his answer? His answer was, because I've been in contact with God, and he told me he's going to be there, basically, right? So we can say that Reverend Moon's talking about internal things, spiritual things, invisible things, and Al Cap is talking about physical, visible things. I wasn't a church member in 1972. I joined in 1976 during the time of Yankee Stadium and Washington Monument. And I didn't really know much about Reverend Moon, the church. All I did is I worked round the clock on Yankee Stadium, putting up posters, going to shop, putting in signs in the window. I don't know if you've seen this picture of Reverend Moon going like that. Handing out tickets and so on. Our security guard the day of Yankee Stadium. And then right away, we began working on the Washington Monument campaign. And there I was witnessing a lot. Every day I would go out, they'd give me a little bag with a peanut butter sandwich and an apple. see you for dinner. Good luck today. So, that's how I, when I first joined the church. And then after Washington Monument was over, I went back on MFT. You know what MFT is? It means Mobile Fundraising Team. And I was fundraising in Long Island, and I was selling boxes of candy. We called them turtles. 1 for 2, 3 for 5, 1 for 2. You know what I mean? So I was selling door to door, and this man comes running down the street after me and says, "This candy's poison, I want my money back." That's what I said. What? He goes, "I just saw it on the news. This is poison. I want my money back. My money back." I said, "Well, look, it's Schraff's candy. It's made in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. It's not poison. I saw it on the news. I want my money back." "Okay, here's your $5. Back then, the media mistreated Reverend Moon, and it caused a lot of problems for me. It ruined my relationship with my physical family. My father would watch the 6 o'clock news, and back then there was only a few channels, channel 2, 4, 5, 7, 13, and basically all the news stations said the same thing, in that Reverend Moon was brainwashing people, corrupting young people. He's a businessman from Korea, so on. In other words, they're treating President Trump the same way they were treating Reverend Moon back then. I never understood why my own physical father would believe the 6 o'clock news more than me, but that's what happened. So eventually, I was called to go to the MFT office in New York City because I have a degree in computer programming and a bachelor's degree in accounting. So I was working at the, trying to computerize the MFT system to account for all the money that's being sent in. We would make deposits at the bank. It was a chemical bank. And to account for all that, I was working on a computerized system. After that, I became a seminary student, and I really appreciated. Marsha's laughing over there. I really saw right away the opportunity that I was given. So one day, I was sitting in the chapel, and I was by myself. I don't know if any of you have seen the big chapel in Unification Theological Seminary, but it's high ceiling and so on. And I was sitting in chapel, and guess who showed up? God did. Any of you seen God? Have you seen God? Anybody else seen God? Have you? I mean, not in abstract. I mean, see God. I saw God there. I could imagine me telling my father, "Hey, Dad, I saw God." He'd say, "Wait a minute, you joined this cult? You're an educated man, you're fundraising in the streets, selling candy, and now you think you see God?" So I really don't tell too many people that. But anyway, that's happened. That's why I put in this Bible quote from Kings, where the cloud filled the house of the Lord. So I was sitting in the seminary chapel by myself, and I'm sitting there, and this cloud comes to my right. big. It was like the size of this room. Comes to my right, and it went through the wall like the wall wasn't even there. Just, and then it stopped in front of me, and there was no doubt in my mind that was God. I don't know what you'd do if you were face to face with God, but I hit the floor on my knees. You know, there's God. He stopped right in front of me. And so I didn't know what to say, so I figured I'd be like Al Cap and start asking questions. And so I started to ask questions. And then God would answer me so fast that before I formed the question, the answer was in my head. I couldn't process it. So I tried again. Same thing. In other words, in terms of computer language, my CPU was too slow and my RAM too small. So then I said, well, maybe I'll just shut up and just be here and see what God has to say to me. I didn't realize that I made a mistake at the time, because when I'm asking God, I put God in the object position, and I'm being subject to Him, and that was a big mistake. You weren't there. So anyway, I'm there and I'm crying and, having all these, there's God. And then God just went through the other wall and just gone. And so I sat down and go, what happened? So I'm reflecting on what happened. And basically God said to me, I already answered all your questions. I even answered the questions you didn't ask. He's referring to divine principle and the Bible. So that's what I want to talk about now. Ever since that time, I don't really want to see God or ask God questions anymore, because He's already given me the tools to. So that's what I want to talk about. Title of my sermon this morning is Living in the World of Cause. Most of us live in the world of effect. You know what that is, right? When you're forced to react to other people, like your wife or your boss or the world that you live in, you're reacting to that world. That's living in the world of result, the world of effect. In other words, you'll never have a relationship with God by living in the world of effect, because you're always reacting to other people, to the thoughts of other people. Why did that man say, this candy's poison? Why didn't he listen to me? Why didn't my own father believe the news more than me? It's because they're living in the world of effect. Living in the world of result. I didn't know the difference either until I had that encounter with God. So on page 19 of Divine Principle, it says that the fundamental cause of existence cannot be solved without understanding the nature of God. In order to know how to live in the world of cause, you must know the nature of God, according to the first page of the first chapter of Divine Principle. So what is God's nature? All of us pretty much know that God likes to create, right? God creates a lot of stuff. I mean, there's like thousands and thousands of different kinds of varieties of, like orchids, there's 5,000 kinds of orchids, or avocados, there's like 30 different kinds of avocados, different kinds of apples, so on and so forth. So it makes sense to me that if you want to make a relationship with God, that you would become a co-creator, a creator like God. In other words, if you want to have a relationship with God, you become a creator yourself. So that's what I want to talk about now. It says in the first chapter of the Bible, Genesis chapter 1, I'll just read it, okay? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness covered the deep waters, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Then God said, "Let there be light," and then there was light. So I'd like to talk about that now. When intelligence moves energy to control matter, that's what the creative act is. I'm going to say that again. When intelligence uses energy to change matter, to give it form, in other words, that's the creative act. So, for example, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In other words, first there was the visualization of light in God's mind, and then as God concentrated on this visualization, it became what's called a thought form. In other words, what was formless now has form because of the thought that God applied to that form using energy. So that's the second stage of the creative process is the thought form. And the final stage, that is the reality of it, the concrete reality of the thought form, is called a form of thought. Every creation has a progressive process for it to come into existence. And so the three stages are, first, the visualization stage. Second stage is the thought form. And the third stage is called the form of thought. If you study unification thought, you'll understand a little bit what I'm saying. It says on page 27 of Divine Principle that the universe was created by the Word. The Word is basically a symbol of a thought, right? So, for example, the thought of light is described by the word light. So the light is just a label for the thought light, right? So when Divine Principle and the Bible, and John that is, says that the universe was created by the Word, what that means is the universe was created by thought. Everything that you see around you existed first by thought. There's nothing that exists that didn't exist first in the world of thought, in the world of cause. So, Divine Principle is telling you how to become a co-creator so that you can build a relationship with God Himself. If you understand this process, you can do anything. You can create anything just like God does. So when you create a visualization and you learn how to use energy, which is created through give and take action, and that give and take action is connected with the universal prime energy, then you begin the three-stage process of becoming a co-creator yourself. So when Jesus says, and it came to pass, but thou, this is King James, they used to speak like this, but it's pretty clear, that's why, but thou, when thou prayest. So what is prayer? Well, Father said it. He said it's mind to mind, heart to heart. In other words, mind to mind, heart to heart there's a word for that. It's called telepathy, telepathic. In other words, when you connect, when Father's mind and heart connect with Jesus in the spirit world, they're separate beings, right? So they're connected telepathically. So that's what Father just said on the video. So when thou prayest, enter into thy closet. This is a metaphor, right? So when you go into your closet, what does that mean? What is a closet? It's a personal space, right? You go into your own personal space and you shut the door. Shut the door means you shut the door on the world of result. You shut the door on everything that's out there. And there are ways to do that. There are meditative practices that you can do to shut the world out so that you can gain control of your own mind and your own thinking. One of those is centering prayer, which maybe I can talk about someday, but it's based on the 4th century church fathers who lived out in the desert, and that's all they did is meditate. Anyway, so enter thy closet and shut the door. Shut the door means leave all that world of results, that visible, physical world of effect. Leave it. Doesn't exist. It's not there anymore. And go into your closet. Then what do? Pray to the Father which is in secret. Well, God already knows you, and he wants to have a relationship with you. He wanted to have a relationship with me, or else he wouldn't have been there, right? But I realized I didn't have a relationship with God. In other words, when God sees himself in you, then he's drawing close to you, right? That's what it means. When I see myself in God, like Sanjanam, I think she goes by the name Selena now, said, you should be one, right? She just said that on the video. I don't know if you caught that. But relating to God means you go into your closet and you pray in secret. And God, who already knows what you're going to ask before you ask it, and I can tell you from my own experience that happened, I was like, what, but, bang, I'm just a creature. God's the creator. So you, by the way. Anyway, so Father which sees in secret shall reward you openly. So that Jesus is using a metaphor to describe the 3-stage process of prayer. First stage being you visualize what you want to ask, and then you ask. So first you visualize it, then you ask, and then you allow it. That's the 3 stages of prayer. Can you imagine you can ask anything of God and it'll be answered as long as you know how to pray, which is what Divine Principle is talking about. So the second stage, the give and take stage, is what Jesus said, knock and it'll be given to you. Seek and you will find. He's talking about, well, if you don't get an answer from God, keep on asking. But you have to have an unchanging visualization of what you want. If you keep on changing what you want, God can't answer your prayer. You have to have a very clear picture in your own head, which is not interfered with by the outside. You have to have a clear picture of what you want. And then you ask God as many times as it takes. And if your prayer is principled, Do you notice that every answer that Father gave was principled? Did you see that? So he just comes right off as, he is the principal. He's the author of this book. He wrote it. And you can see why, because he lives it. He is it. And so when you understand, when you can use energy through give and take action and connect that energy through a mind-to-mind relationship with God, then you get the vertical energy you need to answer your prayer. That vertical energy is called universal prime energy. So when in your prayer, you begin with a visualization, and then this visualization moves energy, and this energy becomes the answer to your prayer. Isn't that amazing? You can ask for anything, so long as it's principled. You can ask for anything. So to me, I knew I was going to talk up here. So I was visualizing myself standing here, watching the video, looking at you, look at me. And, I'm trying not to be nervous and trying to connect and be an inspiration so that when you leave through this door, you don't have to live in the world of results anymore. You can begin to live in the world of cause. When you live in the world of cause, now you're completely free. Because you're a creator, just like God is. And when God sees what you're creating, God says, wow, you want to. So the best way to relate to God is through applying the principle so that you can become a co-creator, and that will turn God on for sure, because God himself loves to create. So my next sermon, I hope to go into this more detail. I just touched on it, but living in the world of cause is where all of us should be at. We shouldn't just be reacting to other people. We don't want to be on that merry-go-round of life where we're not in control of anything. We want to connect. We want to have a mind-to-mind relationship with God. And that relationship just doesn't happen like that. It's gradual, just like Father said. That's why I showed this video today. You heard it right from Father himself. He's the Messiah because he figured out how to make prayer happen. Father said one time, every one of my prayers have been answered. Some immediately, some took 30 years, but every one of my prayers have been answered. What a statement that is. Imagine if you could say that. Every one of my prayers have been answered. So, this is the end of my sermon. I'd like to say a short prayer now. Heavenly Parents, thank you for giving us the answers that we need to live a satisfying life. Thank you for giving us the answers to questions that we haven't even asked yet, because we're walking the path of salvation and we're not there yet. But you have already been there because you're our Heavenly Parents, and you're guiding us towards the path of fulfillment and salvation. Heavenly Parents, thank you for all your love, all your patience. Thank you for helping us become self-aware, aware of who we really are, that is your sons and daughters, who can ask anything of you, because we have a love relationship with you as our Father. I pray this humble prayer in the name of Donald B. Archer, a Bliss Central family member. Adieu.